Meeting on
Recording
Monday,
in progress.
Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Alderman Stancy?
Here.
Alderman Glad?
Here.
Alderman McClatchy? Alderman Harding?
Here.
Alderman Stratt?
Here.
Alderman Devine?
Here.
Alderwoman Miller? Here.
Thank you. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor, just for reference, from the last meeting that we had here, we had people in the audience that couldn't hear all the aldermen. If everybody would lower their mic down, especially with the masks now, and maybe even speak up a little louder because of that.
Sure. Yeah, I was actually just going to say, so before we get on the public comment, if you are in the audience and you're going to go up to the podium and talk, you may lower your mask to speak. If you're on the city council or staff, you may lower your mask to speak when it's your turn to speak. Also, yes, please make sure you speak loudly into the microphone so everyone in the audience can hear you. That microphone on that podium works just fine, so you do not have to scream at that. Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. The public comment portion is for items that are not on the agenda this evening. So if the item is, whether it's the bank property or Mill Street, there's a few of you on here for those, but the overcrowded hospital, Yvonne Gable, would you like to speak? Yes, please. If you could, please state your name and address for public record.
Hi, I'm Yvonne Gable, 4303 Ponca Street, Mchenry. So last week I was actually at Northwestern in Huntley with my dad, and they were taking people from Mchenry and kind of all over. So basically I'm talking about Mill Street.
Oh, so this is regarding Mill Street?
Yes.
Okay, then you could speak when we get to Mill Street. Sorry about that. I just saw overcrowded hospital, so I just wanted, okay, thank you. All right, is there anyone else that would like to make a public comment that are items that are not on the agenda this evening? All right, I see none. Moving on to the presentation of the fiscal year 2021 audit report by Edgar Casella and Company. Director Lynch, you want to go ahead and get started?
We received the final audit about 2 weeks ago to review, and then we finalized it. As is standard every year, a representative from Edgar Casella and Company comes to present the audit. Kevin Smith and Brian Warner are here as representatives to present the audit at this time.
Hi everyone, I'm Kevin. So just wanted to come out every year like we do and present the audit, how everything went each year. So just, you usually start how field work went and then get into some of the financials, but as usual, everything went well overall. Derek, Carolyn, and the rest of the finance department staff, it's great to work with. Always on top of everything as far as entries beforehand, getting us the information that we need. Majority of the entries that we do make during the audit are entries provided by Carolyn. Some small reclasses and things that have to do with reporting at year end for things like the police pension and the IMRF pensions and OPEB liabilities. So this year was also with all the additional requirements that were related to the CARES monies that you guys got that required a single audit. This is the first time you guys have had a single audit in a few years, which dates back to the IEPA loans that you guys got a handful of years ago. Again, that part of the audit, everything was good, clean with that as well. So no issue with that as well. Management letter. Nothing in the current year, same as has been in past years. So basically we went through you guys' internal controls, reviewed all the records, and we didn't find anything that needed to be communicated in the management letter to governance. Also, same as last year, you guys had a clean, unmodified opinion, which is essentially the best opinion you guys can get. There was also an unmodified opinion on the compliance related to single audit as well. As I just mentioned, there was no issues with that either. As far as newest standards this year, GASB 84 was in effect for this year. This was related to fiduciary activities. This did not have effect on the city at all. Essentially, this was for certain funds that were directed by the district that had to come on the district's books. A lot of school districts had to bring activity funds back on the books. You guys didn't have anything like that needed to come back on there. So it was a new GASB, but didn't affect anything for you guys. As far as standards coming up. GASB 87 is gonna be a new standard that is potentially gonna affect you guys. This has to do with leases, essentially operating leases now for things that you guys rent that have any right to use an asset may come onto the books similar to like a capital lease if you guys bought something in that manner. That's not for another couple of years, so that's something just to be aware of in the future. It will not happen next year, it would be the year after that would affect you guys. So overall, the report itself, as you guys have looked at it, is gonna look very similar to the prior years. Other than the subsequent event footnotes that is describing, the uncertainties of COVID right now, and also the receipt of the American Rescue Plan monies, and the pension consolidation. It's actually pretty similar to last year's. It's not common from years before last year, but last year was very similar as far as the pension consolidation, and the cures monies as opposed to the ARP monies. Specific financial highlights, page 17, this is your guys' total governmental funds. You guys are up for the year about 4.2 million, ending at about 7.1, or about 7 months in total governmental expense. This was factored into the, not taking into account the large pension contribution you guys have with the bond issue. So that 7 months is not taking that into account. More specifically, the general fund, it ended at about 12.1 million, of which about almost 10 million is unrestricted. This is on page 15. That's a little less than 5 months of current year expense. Again, not taking into account the large amount of pension contribution you guys have in the bond issue. All other non-major funds seem to be in good shape. The MFT fund is built up a little over 3 years, but that's common. Usually you guys build those up for specific projects and then spend a big bulk of those in 1 year as those projects come due. Same thing with the TIF fund is also building, but that's also following a specific purpose and building for specific reasons. As far as business type, the water sewer funds, unrestricted fund balance is about 8.5 million on page 19, which is a little over a year of current year expense. Overall, general fund balance moved back up again this year. It was somewhat dropping last year, so obviously, things were good with the budget cuts in anticipation of some potential COVID problems. Obviously, the cures monies helped as well. To expect more of the same in FY22 with the ARP monies as well. Government-wide then, these are the types of financials you guys are not used to looking at on a regular basis. These are taking into account more long-term focused things as far as your long-term debt, fixed assets, things like that. This year, in the current year, there's an increase of about 14 million. This is due to several factors that are broken out very nicely for you on page 18 that provides you a reconciliation of how you get from the fund financials to the government-wide financials. A lot of it has to do with the contributions to the pensions. So essentially, you guys took out that money for the bond issuance. It got contributed to the pension as an expenditure on the government-wide financials. For government-wide purposes, that's reducing the debt as far as the liability related to the police pension. All debt payments are treated that way. We also have differences as far as capital asset purchases. Those are expenditures on the district's funds, which is government-wide. Those increase fixed assets. Also, just wanted to point out with the bond issue that you guys had this year related to the police pension, the police pension liability is now an asset. That obviously was the purpose of this, but you guys do have the bond debt now, so they kind of offset each other. Obviously, with the goal of having more funds in that police pension fund now to provide some better investment returns. Overall, those are the main things I wanted to go over. So unless you guys have any questions.
Does council have any questions for Kevin? Very good. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Thank you. No problem. Thank you, guys.
Have a good night.
You too.
All right, moving on to the consent agenda. I'm looking for a motion and second to approve 6A through 6H. Alderman Santi?
I will make the motion to approve consent agenda items 6A through 6F as presented.
Thank you. Second?
I'm sorry,
6H. Alderman Miller, for second. Thank you. Discussion on these items? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santi?
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller? Yes. Alderman Devine?
Yes.
Alderman Strack?
Yes.
Alderman Harding?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Thank you, council. Next item on the agenda is 7A, is a motion to approve an ordinance on annexing property commonly known as 1205 Charles Street in McConney County, Illinois, with the zoning classification of RS4. Director Palaraki, you want to go ahead and present this?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, basically, the property at 1205 Charles had a failed septic. They were contiguous to the city of McHenry, and therefore needed sewer, and our ordinance requires them to annex into the city. So, if you have any questions, pretty basic.
Thank you. Council, any questions regarding this item? Open it up for public comment. Is there anyone from the audience that would like to make a public comment regarding this item? See none? Last chance for council. Alderman Glenn?
Yeah, the only thing I was gonna mention is with this coming in, somebody wants to come in unless they need this water and sewer, or the sewer basin, more than anything. But some of these properties, they're slowly going to wrap around others, and are we gonna be looking at what's that, annexation for the others, or
Yeah.
how,
Well, yeah, council directed us last year to do that, to annex those pockets of property. And we're in the process right now of having the surveys done on all of those, so they will be coming before you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions by council? No? Clerk, can you please call the roll? No motion. Oh, no motion, sorry. Alderman Santi, you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to, 7A, a motion to approve annexation of property commonly known as 1205 Charles Street in McHenry, zoning classification to be RS-4.
Thank you. Second? Alderman Strack?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion on this item? See none? Clerk, I will be voting on this as well. So, clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santi,
Yes.
Alderman Glad,
Yes.
Alderman Harding,
Yes.
Alderman Strack,
Yes.
Alderman Devine,
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller, Mayor Dutt,
Yes. All right, next item on the agenda, 7B, is a motion to approve an ordinance granting a use variation and zoning variations for a 3-unit multifamily building at 3807 Main Street. I am looking for a motion to approve. Alderman Moore.
I'll make that motion to approve the ordinance granting a use variation and zoning variation for a 3-unit multifamily at 3807 Main Street.
Second, Alderman Santi.
I will second the motion.
Thank you. Discussion by council on this item. Is there anyone from the audience that'd like to make a public comment regarding this item? Seeing none, back to council. Any other comments, questions before we call the roll? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Miller,
Yes.
Alderman Santi,
Yes.
Alderman Glad,
Yes.
Alderman Harding,
Yes.
Alderman Strack,
Yes.
Alderman Devine,
Yes.
Thank you, council. Next item on the agenda is 7C, is a motion to approve an ordinance granting a zoning map amendment, zoning variations, and a conditional use permit for the operation of a bar, tavern, and live entertainment at 4502 West Crystal Lake Road. Director Fowler, if you want to go ahead and present this.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. The petitioner, Mr. Erslinger, managed member of Bank Storage LLC, is proposing to construct a Cuban-themed bar/tavern with live entertainment at 4502 West Crystal Lake Road. To accommodate the request, the petitioner will need to receive approval of 3 different zoning items. Zoning map amendment from C2 neighborhood to commercial district, or C2 commercial neighborhood district to C3 community commercial district. A conditional use permit to allow a bar/tavern with live entertainment. Zoning variation to allow an interior side yard setback of 8 feet and move the required 10 feet for the existing principal structure, and any other zoning variations needed to accommodate proposed development. The petitioner is here this evening. If council has any questions,
Thank you. Bert, would you like to come up to the podium? Council, do you have any questions for Bert Erslinger, who is the applicant for this item? Or is there anything you'd like to say before we move further?
First of all, thank you for your time this evening. We are proposing to do this property. The zoning amendment request is based upon the current use of the property, which was not being operated within the C2 zoning district as it was before. So we're just wishing to use it sort of the way it was being used before, allowing, which is a conditional allowable use to operate a location. So we're hoping to sort of revitalize the location formerly known as the bank property next to Ace Hardware, revitalize that into something that can be a benefit to the community and to also utilize the rear property for storage like it's being used now, or like it was being previously used.
Can you state your name and address for public record?
Sure, I'm Bertram Erslinger, one of the managing members of Bank Storage LLC, 409 North Front Street, Mchenry, Illinois.
Thank you. Appreciate it. 2 minutes. All right, I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve 7C as presented. Alderman Strack?
I'll make the motion to approve 7C as presented.
Thank you. Second? Alderman Santi?
I will second the motion.
Thank you. Discussion on this item by council. Alderman Glenn?
Yeah. By the petitioner's comments, how is this such a benefit to the community? I mean, we take a look at Crystal Lake Road right now at 3 o'clock in the afternoon with the schools and everything else, and it's going to get worse next year, and it'll probably grow. And we're going to have where kids are skateboarding on the way home from school, they're taking bikes on the way home from school, they're walking across this property in that area, and somebody from a bar at 3 o'clock in the afternoon come walking out or pulling out onto Crystal Lake Road. Now, granted, they could be coming from another area, but I mean, this is right there, right where we have the congestion with the schools right now. So that's a big concern for safety for our kids. I also take a look and I say, all right, we have how many property owners that are near this, and granted they're not adjacent to it, so they never got any kind of notices about the change. And I believe the original proposal was for live entertainment, but not outside, and that was decided at planning and zoning that you brought up, that you wanted outside entertainment. Is that not right?
I guess I'll address those in order as far as how is this an improvement to the community. I mean, right now we're looking at a vacant piece of property. So revitalizing that, rebuilding that, redesigning that to something that can be used by the neighborhood as well as the rest of the community in an area that could use it. There's nothing on that side of town as far as something like this is concerned. So this does provide a bit of entertainment. It will also be a draw to the additional businesses as far as revenues are concerned. We're going to take food deliveries from the other local restaurants if we're going to offer a food option in the place. So that will also bring people in from another community to drive revenue to other businesses within the city of Mchenry. As far as traffic flow is concerned, we did have that looked at. We did talk to the city about that. A tavern is actually a lower impact on the community than a bank with a drive-through. So there will actually be less traffic based on the current ratings of traffic between a tavern and a bank with a drive-through. So as currently operated by a bank, the use that we're proposing will actually be a lower impact of the traffic that's there. That property also, if anybody's familiar with the area, that property also has a stoplight. So there's a stoplight that enters and exits that property. One of the entrances we're restricting, so whereas now it's 2 points of traffic coming out of that, in and out of that, there will now be 1 point of traffic coming in and out of that property. So we are actually making that a lesser traffic flow area versus a greater traffic flow area. As far as the live entertainment is concerned, we didn't specify inside or outside. Planning and zoning did have a discussion as far as the entertainment, whether it be inside or outside in the facility, and they also put restrictions on the time that the entertainment is going to be. I'll also say that in that discussion in planning and zoning, we did discuss that this is going to be more of an upscale experience, not a late night party spot bar. This is more something centered towards after work meetings and after dinner drinks. So this is not going to be something that you're going to have people partying at all hours of the night to 5-piece rock bands. The entertainment that's being discussed is more like acoustic guitar, and in fact, as the restrictions on the live entertainment outside are concerned, we're not allowed any amplification for audio. So I don't believe that will be any impact on the community. The other thing is, I believe, and Ross, you can correct me on this, I believe as far as notices are concerned, I want to say there was about 160 or 100 and something, 150, 160 notices sent out.
Correct.
So, and we also didn't receive a lot of, actually we received no negative comments on planning and zoning. So we received a lot of positive feedback as far as putting something like this into the community. And we did also go out a little bit into the community, to the surrounding business park and the Ace Hardware, because while this is in a C2 zoning area, which is considered commercial residential zoning, this property is directly on Crystal Lake Road with Ace Hardware and an office park flanking it and a vacant property behind it. So there really isn't housing directly adjacent to the property outside of a few houses across the street. So we believe we will be a great member of the community. We operate other businesses that are benefit to the community, and we don't see this as being any different.
Thanks. Out of the 150, 160 notices that you sent, how many were residential?
I can't speak to that. I have to look that up for you.
You have no idea. I mean, Ross, do you have any idea?
I can get that information.
I mean, you're talking, what you're talking, 100 and some feet out, how many residences are right outside of?
Every adjoining neighbor, so apartments.
Right, the apartments, the owner would have gotten a notice.
Cody, we sent.
No, so the Ace Hardware property, wraps entirely around, the bank site.
Oh, okay.
Correct.
So that vacant property you're speaking of is actually owned by Ace, so, part of that site, so it only went to Ace. The it's a condominium office complex to the east, so every single one of those units had to receive notification. So really just, we're talking about as far as notification concerns for residential, probably like 2 or 3 of the residential units across the street.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it.
There is not one piece of residential zoning that works this property.
Thank you. But we're kind of having a discussion with staff right now because you couldn't answer the question. So let me finish with that, please. Okay?
Great.
Thank you. The other question I've got is at the planning and zoning meeting, Russ, we talked about the fact that they would only be allowed any kind of noise from that to the edges of their property, correct?
We talked about the nuisance ordinance, yeah.
Right.
Right.
Okay. How are you going to enforce this?
Like I enforce any other tavern, like Buddies or DC Cobb's.
But they're not next to the residence.
But the ordinance are the same. They are.
I understand that, but what I'm getting at is we have residences here that could be,
If it's declared a nuisance, we will write a ticket.
no, will you write a ticket if it's reported, or will you have to be out there to write that ticket?
We have to witness it.
Right, so you're not gonna be out there at 7 o'clock in the evening.
No, but between the chief and I think we can make it happen.
Chief, you've written tickets for this in the past.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and to be clear, if you have outside music, it's not gonna stop at the boundaries. It's about what's reasonable. It's, if you stand across the street and you can't hear it, that's reasonable. We would never write a ticket for that. We wouldn't write it at Buddies. And we've had a lot of issues with Buddies and DC Cobb's through the years because there's a large stretch of residential along Venice and then along with the residential above Buddies. So, and the retirement community there. So we've been able to mitigate that fairly well. So the acoustic is the key.
But it's a downtown area, which, when you're talking about Buddies, when you're talking about.
Yeah, I
any of
wouldn't
those.
speak to that. I would just say there's residential area.
But you're using that as an example, and over here, this area is C2, and why? Because that was what was planned for that area all along, was C2, neighborhood community district. Now you're talking, you want C3, and that opens it up to a lot, much greater uses than what C2 offers. And that's another concern of mine, is the fact that, again, just like the used car lot, are we setting a precedence as far as down Crystal Lake Road? It's not an area we want to see built up. I mean, we've got plenty of areas along 120 and 31, even on Green Street and Riverside, that we've got empty spots for businesses. Petitioner had plenty of other properties to choose from. I'm sure this was because it was lucrative, because the bank needs to get rid of it. And I'm sure it was a heck of a deal, but the thing is what's best for the community is the most important thing. How is it gonna affect our community there? And, how is it gonna affect the school kids there? Let me ask you something. How many different types of uses, if we go from C2 to C3, do we create?
There's a few more uses, but the issue with the C2 is it's tailors, candy stores, things that just don't exist anymore.
Wow.
Shoe repair store,
Uh-huh.
it's a very limited list. TV repair, you know anybody in that business?
Newspaper distribution was one of them.
Newspaper distribution, I mean, I'm not saying this because I'm saying that this is the most appropriate use for the site, that this is up to the council to determine, but that will not, it'll sit vacant if we keep it C2.
Any other questions? Alderman Miller, go ahead.
I just want to compliment our Planning and Zoning Commission. I think they did a great job in speaking with the petitioner and evaluating your business plan. You were very forthcoming with information about what you planned or intended to do. I attended the Planning and Zoning meeting. It was virtual, of course. As the meeting progressed, you were enlightened by their information and you made decisions on the fly, which I was grateful for because I don't think you were prepared with some of the information. And I think Planning and Zoning did a great job in tailoring this business request to that location. For example, nothing after 10 o'clock. I think that fits. No additional lighting. I think that fits. Defining that anytime you have the garage door open, your entire establishment is outdoor and a different set of rules apply. I think that fits. So I think the process of Planning and Zoning, working with our petitioner, was effectively done right. And what we have in front of us is the best use for that location at this time. We can always go back at the variance. But I think we have a petitioner who's willing to make it work, who's willing to work within the rules that we've established, and I think P&Z has done a good job for us.
Thank you. Any other council members have any? Alderman Sandy, go ahead.
The live entertainment for this, the regulations and nuisance, everything is the same as whether you're downtown or way west of 120th, wherever's located in town, correct? There's no difference there in those regulations in a different district.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but at 10 p.m. I think.
That's for everybody, right?
That's per conditional use permit. So it could be different on every one. So they are limited to 10. I think some of the other establishments might be later.
Might be later. All right. The drive-through exits are now, if he gets past, those go away, correct? How does that work? Everything's gonna access
The light.
the light.
And then handicap parking will be, you'll pull into what used to be the exit.
Okay.
And he'll have some stalls there.
Okay. And who owns the property right behind you? Who owns it? I mean,
Ace Hardware, that's C3 directly behind the property. It's vacant, but it's owned by Ace Hardware and it's C3.
that's, okay, that's Ace Hardware. All right. And I think we're fortunate enough that this is like the second project that came into this location. And I was definitely concerned and I was on the minority side in regards to when the used cars came up. I like the looks of this project and it's great that we have something proposed to us because yes, we do definitely have some vacancies and it seems like they've got some regulations set on this and I look forward to moving forward on this. I have no further comments.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments by council? Alderman Glenn?
Yeah. What's gonna happen when, residents that live on Royal can hear the music at 9 o'clock at night? we gonna ignore that? I mean, because the sounds will travel that far. I'm sorry, but you know what? When Mayor Jed had his festivities, you could hear it, depending on which way you were living with the winds blowing, you could hear it miles away. I mean, granted, this is no, amplification, it's just an acoustic guitar, but that doesn't mean, number one, you'll hear the music, number two, you have people drinking, okay? When people drink, they tend, especially with music, they tend to speak louder. All that will be, out there for the residents to have to hear. Is that to take into account? Are we going to enforce anything if we can hear that all the way down at Royal?
If there's an ordinance being violated, we will enforce it.
But it's all an interpretation, and I have had a lot of complaints years back as far as sounds, and all I would hear is well, we don't have the proper equipment to measure the exact decimals, and so therefore, there's not much we can do, those type of things.
I think we could say this about any tavern, any bar, Pearl Street and Riverside, there's homes all over the place in downtown.
It's a downtown area.
Right, but
This isn't.
I think we can count on our staff and our police department.
Speaking for the petitioner, like, there are business owners in town already, and if there's ever issues, which there really hasn't been, but I can guarantee you that they would work with the city on mitigating it.
Why, are you related to them or anything? That
Oh,
you can
hey,
guarantee it? All I'm saying is, you're saying you can guarantee it. How can you guarantee it?
Because I have relationships with business owners in town.
It's just, we get calls from DC Cos, and I'll call the owner of the DC Cos and make a call and say, hey, if you don't mind, keep it turned down. That's part of having relationships. I mean, that's what we do here. So, Alderman Strack, go ahead.
Mayor, I'd like to call a question.
Sure. Thank you. I would like to give an opportunity for a public comment before we do a roll call. Yeah, sorry, thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Carnett. I don't know if I said that right.
So, you pronounce the last name correctly, Mayor.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for public.
My name is Stephen Carnett. I live at 4907 Fidel Drive in Mchenry. And my concerns are pretty basic with the children. I did not read when the hours of operation are. I did read where if it's C3, there is an opportunity that this could be turned into a cannabis dispensary. My own personal opinion, living in Mchenry for over 30 years and then in Chicago, cigar bars have never really been popular. Our economics in this town we're blue collar. My friend used to own a cigar store in Glenview. It folded. Not enough people are going to spend the money. They're going to spend the money on alcohol. I don't believe we need alcohol on Crystal Lake Road. We do have the high school. It's going to get nothing but busier with the proposed apartments and the apartments or the houses over in Wonder Lake. There's going to be a greater demand upon both the schools. I just don't think it's a good use. I think a better use would be turn it into a park. The city of Mchenry can buy it. If it's in that, if the bank is that distressed to sell the property, sell it to the city. Turn it into a park. Turn it into something where it can be used by the community versus a select number of people. At the same time, I would ask, who's supposed to smoke anymore? Don't we not want to get rid of all cigarettes? Isn't it cancerous? Is it something that we want to promote to our children? I don't think so. I'm concerned. It's just not a great, there's too many places in Mchenry that are underutilized right now that are better off served and could be used as this place of liquor and cigars. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Anyone else would like to make a public comment regarding this item? Please step up to the podium, state your name and address for public record.
Sign up, but this is the first I've heard of this.
You, Yeah, come on. You can get up there and you just say your name and address for public records.
Yeah, just so you know, I sit in back, and it's very hard to hear you guys up here. 'Cause
Okay.
even though you got microphones, it's very hard to hear.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, my name's Agatha Walter. I live at 4204 South Street, right in that area where you're gonna have this bar. A bar right down the road from a high school? I mean, are you kidding me? They get enough bad influence as it is. You don't need a bar right there. Like you said, 31, 120, there's plenty of buildings empty there. Just, I'm sure you people know it, drive up and down the roads. Why not put it there then? You want entertainment? I'm sure entertainment gets out of hand sometimes. People get drunk, it gets out of hand sometimes. Now you're gonna have them driving up and down the road in this residential area? You're asking for trouble. It's not gonna work. You're gonna have kids drive bikes around there. Like you said, why don't we make a park out of it? Have the community use it, not just certain people that wanna drink, okay, and smoke, and who knows what else. It's not a good area. You're gonna have loitering, you're gonna have problems. Any bar has problems. Can't tell me they're 100% no problems, okay? You can't tell me that. We're all adults. Let's use our brains. Remember, children go to school there. They walk past there. They don't need to see a bar right there. This is supposed to be Mchenry, a friendly place for people and families. Look what you've got going on now. Empty buildings, bunch of bars, bunch of gambling. It's all about the money. It's not about our community. I almost feel like you people don't care about the people that live here. You're supposed to be working for us, okay? You're supposed to listen to us, not bully us into thinking what you want. If it's all about the money, then don't do it in Mchenry, okay? Then move and go somewhere else. We came out here, I came from Chicago to get away from all this. And yet now I feel like I'm in little Chicago. Now, whether it's a bar or what we're going to be talking about later on, this is going to become a little Detroit pretty soon. You don't have any decent restaurants here, okay? You try, but they don't seem to succeed very well. People hang around some of the restaurants around here only because there's nothing else. People go shopping Crystal Lake. They go shopping in Algonquin all over the place because we don't have decent stores. We got our basic Walmart, whoop-de-doo. And now you want a bar? I mean, really? I just don't understand this, okay? I've lived long enough. I've seen changes, but Mchenry's going downhill. And if I could afford to, I would move out already. I came out here to be in the country, get away from people that hang around bars, that smoke, that loiter. You're going to have just not the best influence of people coming here. And to have it so close to the school, that's what aggravates me. Those kids don't need to see a bar when they walk to school in the morning. They don't need to see a bar when they walk home. They see enough of that in town. So whether it's the money you guys think you're going to generate, if that's what's driving you, then I'm sorry I live here. Because I want to be where it's quiet, where it's peaceful, where families don't have to worry about walking down the street not getting hit by a drunk or something. So if this bar does open and somebody gets killed, someone gets hit by a drunk, or something happens, it's on your shoulders. Because I think you need to listen to us as a community. This has got, as for notifying us, I never heard about this. This is the first I heard about it. I don't know where notices came out to notify people about this bar coming. We never got anything. This is the first I heard of it. And I am upset, as you can tell. I usually don't talk in front of people, but this really got to me. It's bad enough what you guys are planning to do on Mill Street. This is just as bad. I've had enough of it already. I think you need to use your conscience. Think about the kids. Don't think about the money all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to make a public comment? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Excuse me? Are we at the end of the discussion?
Call the question.
He's a newbie.
Really?
Really? So he calls the question, there has to be a
Don't
second.
disrespect, you
There has to be a
disrespected
second.
staff last meeting,
But
now you're
there
disrespecting
has to be a
Stop.
second.
Stop. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Strack,
Yes.
Alderman Santee,
Yes.
Alderman Glad,
No.
Alderman Harding,
Yes.
Alderman Devine,
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller,
Yes.
Thank you, it has passed. Good luck, Bert.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a motion granting preliminary, plan approval for the Taylor Place Apartments multifamily and integrated design district development at 812 North Mill Street. Director Powell.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm gonna be short with this. The council has already seen this, one time in a conceptual, and, Jake would like to give another, brief presentation to you tonight. The petitioner is, petitioning for a development at the corner of Mill Street and Crystal Lake Road for a 54-unit, planned multifamily, apartment complex. Jake?
Awesome, thanks,
From
Charles.
there?
Yeah, for sure. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking some time to hear about Taylor. You can find in your packet. Want to just walk through those and then open it up for questions as Alderman might have. So we're still talking about Taylor Place Apartments here, right at the intersection of North Mill Street and West Crystal Lake Road. Looking at it doing about 54 units, comprised of, one single 46-unit building and then two 4-unit townhome style buildings. Once again, just stressing the conversations that we've had up to today, how we really made it a priority for Mchenry and working in the community here. We're working very closely with the staff, aldermen, and a variety of parties as early on as possible, really exploring and trying to understand, if this would be accepted in the community here, if this was the best site to look at. And we feel really confident that this is a great site for families. This is where you want families in Mchenry. It's right by the park, right by the high school. I think it's an incredible site. And we've been doing this for, 10 years plus. It's something that we pride ourselves really well on, is, finding the right sites for families. And I think, with this development, it would be really successful and something really for the city to be really proud of. Looking at some of the different renderings. So this is what we're looking at today. Some industrial uses, some old historic buildings that are really needed in the refreshing. And this is our site plan. Like I said, 46-unit, 3-story building, 2 4-unit townhome buildings, and then some really nice renderings that we put together. And, I think this is a really exciting proposal. I think it's beautiful. I think it fits onto that site really well, and we're really excited about it. Looking at some of the different renderings here, the 4-unit townhome, the garage parking in the back. These are just some different perspectives of the proposal here. So that's the 4-unit building right off of West Crystal Lake Road. Really nice finishes, as we talked about last time. Modern look, modern finishes, nice club room on the property as well. We're really emphasizing landscaping here. That's something that's been stressed throughout the entirety of the process. As you can see in some of those renderings, we're really trying to incorporate as much landscaping as we possibly can, and are once again open to, additional feedback. Like I've said many times, that is our priority here, is to keep getting feedback, keep improving our plan. We're really excited about what we have put together to date. And then some just general summary statistics of the property and everything. Sorry for the audience, I can't see any of that at all. It is available online as well, though. We've gone through the tax credit stuff. We've gone through the different income and rent stuff at this point. And to just keep you all up to date with where we're at, so we've submitted the application to IDA, or the preliminary application. The next step is the full application in February, and our contact information. I do want to take the time to, open it up for questions and make sure we get those all answered tonight, though.
I Thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and open it up for discussion, comments, questions by council. Alderman Sanji, go ahead.
Jake, could you go to that landscaping conceptual drawing again?
Yeah, absolutely. And just so the committee knows, we're working through the final landscaping plan now, which, will have a bit more details. So the city does have some strict. Yep, the city does have some strict ordinances, so we want to make sure that those are all adhered to as well.
Okay, when you look at this property and you've got commercial off of Main.
Yep.
Coming into this, land, I want to say it's the south, or north and northwest section.
Right.
There's drainage back there.
Yep.
I'm sure you've walked the property numerous times now.
Yeah.
My concern, and came from a commercial owner right there, in regards to, I know the landscaping's there, I don't know if it's like some type of hill buffer or anything in regards to that, but I kind of want to get your thoughts of potentially, or did you ever think about this, where you should be putting in some type of security because of what you're backing up to there. It's back of commercial. You've got, some vehicles back there. You've got a lot of things that they have in their storage area or outside their buildings at night. Concerns with residencies, kids, that sort of thing, in regards to potentially, when we talk about landscaping, looking at putting fencing in there. And I mean,
I think that's a great idea. I'm sorry to cut you off if you want to.
No, that's just, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's part of our process here, is to get some of those ideas and feedback. I think that's not a bad idea. We did intentionally put the garages where they are. We did intentionally put that tree line there to buffer and add some security to the site. If a fence is something that you'd like to see as well there, I think that's something we could look at.
Okay. And another thing I wanted to follow up on, something I had brought up in your discussion time before.
Yep.
The historical buildings are going to stay in place, correct?
Yeah. So
you are using those as part of your project?
Yep. The city's identified 2 historical buildings, that beige 3-story building, and then the adjacent 1-story brown brick building. So that corner building will be reused into a community space fitness center for the property, and then the neighboring one will be 4 units of townhome units.
Okay.
So we'll be, cleaning up the brick and everything, and then really, making it nice inside of them.
Okay. I have no other questions right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Miller, go ahead.
So Jake, thank you. You and I have seen this
Many times now.
plan many times now, and for my residents, thank you all for being here. As some of you and I have communicated, we have seen this plan many times, and it has evolved from its initial plan to the plan that you saw at Jake's town hall meeting to the plan that you see tonight. Jake, go back to that picture that you had up there. So from the beginning, I felt that the residents that you were proposing were a good use, and I've had great concerns over traffic.
Absolutely.
And egress and ingress from this property. You have made good strides in relocating the building, relocating the direction and the flow of traffic to make this much more appealing and not dumping all that traffic out farther down Mill Street. Can you bring back up that last?
Yeah, the general site plan, or?
Yeah, the site plan, that'd be great.
Absolutely. There you go. It's kind of hard to
one
see,
behind, perfect.
Yep.
So I want the residents to look at where he's relocated the exits to parking. If you all remember, the original plan you saw had the buildings pushed farther west, and all the traffic was coming out onto Mill in the middle, almost lining up with Crestwood. And you see they've moved the buildings down so that now the parking has to come out closer to Crystal Lake Road or farther away. I think that was an intentional reaction to our desire to not have all that traffic dumping onto Crestwood. So I applaud you for doing that. I'm still concerned about the flow. I like the garages.
Yep.
And I asked you to put more garages
Absolutely.
in, because you had originally not a lot of garages.
Right.
And we live in northern Illinois,
Yep.
people want garages. And I think that's gonna take some of the surface off. So I'm glad to see that you've added a whole line of garages.
Yep.
I'm also grateful that you've changed up a little bit of facade to reduce the ambient lighting.
Right.
Because I'm concerned for my residents about this big building.
Yep.
And the lighting that's coming off of it. So in conversation, you and I have talked about a lot of the things that I know my residents were upset about.
Right.
And I think I see the changes that we've requested, and you're evolving with the plan. So I'm more pleased today than I was yesterday that you've adapted your program and your plan to what our needs are. I'm still concerned over your traffic flow.
Right.
And I don't know that you can fix that.
Yep.
With the exception of, is that an exit going onto Main Street?
That is an exit going onto Main Street. Yep. Yep, so,
And are you pointing traffic off to Main Street, or how do you expect that to flow?
we can do some directional signage on the site, if that's something you'd like to see, but right now it's just proposed as natural flow.
So that's right now, just an open parking lot.
Yep.
You're gonna improve the parking lot.
Correct.
And have that driveway.
Onto Main, correct.
Perfect.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate the changes that you've made. I think they've accommodated some of our requests. And I'm pleased that you've shifted the plan. My biggest concern is still the flow of traffic onto Mill and what that's going to do to that whole area, but that comes with growth.
Right.
And I understand that, so thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Any other questions, comments by council? Alderman Sanjay?
I appreciate the time that, Jake has given us over the past couple of months. I guess the traffic question is a question that can't be answered tonight. I know just from my location and what occurred in my neighborhood when a new development was built east of me, and traffic flow definitely increased on an intersection and flowed down one of my neighborhood streets. I know from time to time, and I wouldn't have to request this, but I can understand that the chief and his department would, keep an eye on this, because they have kept an eye on some concerned areas that I've seen before. Because yes, those are all, like my neighborhood, smaller residential streets. And I definitely just have that concern, and like I said, I just don't know if it can be answered tonight, because of what we're looking at, and, we see we see the setup, and I appreciate how he's going to try to direct out to, Maine and get the traffic out to Crystal Lake. But once residents understand the nature of the roadways and, I can see through a learning process that people will, formulate a way of getting through that neighborhood to get to 31 and start heading southbound at 31. I see that because that's something that occurred by me actually going southbound on Green Street. So it's a concern, but like I said, you can't answer it tonight. And, we've got to look to the professionals, the people that are designing this, the people on our staff that are reviewing it. And the bottom line is, if this project goes through, it's going to be on the people on this side in regards to staff and, especially, departments like community development and police to make sure people understand and respect the residents around them and be able to, be able to traffic and send their, and go to the through streets to get to their next location. I know you can't really respond to that. If you want to say anything, fine, but, or Director Heller, I think Director Powell.
Yeah, so, part of the approval process is obviously we're gonna require them to do a traffic impact analysis. Petitioners have agreed that if there's anything that becomes of that, which, history probably tells us that there really isn't going to be a huge impact on traffic on this, but to ease a lot of minds and that, will allow the professionals to get that traffic analysis done. If something does come up and the request is made to do that, we will make sure that the petitioner and our staff work together to get whatever traffic controlling devices those are or whatnot in place. So just to ease some minds. Thank you, Russ.
Any other questions? Alderman Glenn?
Yeah, during the process, you mentioned the fact that in order for this project to go through, you need, is it federal or state?
It's a quasi-state agency, the Illinois Housing Development Authority.
Okay. Let me ask you something. Anytime government gives you money, there's always strings. What are the strings that are attached?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've tried to be really upfront about the biggest strings that are attached to that funding. And that's that, in exchange for receiving those tax credits, we have to cap the income and rents associated with each unit, which I can pull up. I believe I put it into this presentation again. So that's kind of the big string that's attached. I'll also add that these deals get underwritten, reviewed, looked at, not just by the city and, our company, but way more by all our investors, by, our management companies. So they're very strictly underwritten. So that's another kind of string that's attached that we have to go through that process for. But that should make the committee even more comfortable that, this deal will be vetted very strictly and, set up for success.
And Jake, you guys are 50% now. You're not?
We have a variety of income restricted units, but the majority of the units will be 50 to 80% units.
So looking at this chart, 30% for 4 persons have an income limit of $27,960.
Correct. Yep, and that's based off of a percentage of the county median income, so Mchenry County.
So 30% of your residents have got to meet that income limit.
No. So the way it works is you have to, when you receive these tax credits, you have to elect a certain restriction for that unit. So a 4-person household, it can't rent a unit, would have to make in order to rent a 30% unit, would have to make under $27,000 a year. It wouldn't be charged more than $727 a month for that unit, because they'd have to be in a 3-bedroom.
30% of the units?
No, so the units at the property will have a wide range of income restrictions placed on them. So, for example, a 30% unit, which will be very few of them, would have an income restriction that aligns with what you see in the first column there. So a 30% income restricted unit would, if a single individual wanted to rent a unit that makes $15,000 a year, well, then they'd only be eligible for a 30% unit and only able to pay up to $524 a month.
The 30% is based off of it's 30% of the
county
median
right.
income. So
Does that make sense?
The county median income is 84.
I don't know if that's right. It's probably about 80.
So that percentage has nothing to do with how many units.
Correct.
That are there.
Correct. It doesn't have anything to do with how many units. It doesn't have anything to do with the individuals.
What does it tell you as far as how many of those units have to be with income levels at those dollars?
On our property, it'll probably be, I don't know off the top of my head, probably 15 to 20% of units.
15 to 20% of the units will have to accommodate.
Will be restricted at the 30% level. Correct. So the idea of the program is that you have a wide variety. In a 54-unit project development, you have a wide variety of 30, 50, 60, and 80% units. So you can target a wide variety of households.
And that's the limit, or the minimum that you can have, and actually you could wind up with more depending on
These
know, one
would
around.
be the income limits that you
Yeah.
see on the screen.
Correct that.
Yep.
So let's say, I mean, you know, let's say, out of 100 units, you had to have, let's say 20 units at.
30%, restricted at the 30% level. Correct.
Right. But that doesn't mean you could have.
That
40 units.
restriction's put in place through land use restriction agreement, and that lasts 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
So once that restriction's in place, that's what the unit has to be rented for.
Okay.
Did I answer your question fully?
I think
Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments by council? None? All right, sir, if you could just have a seat, we'll go ahead and give public comment.
Yep.
Kathy Lynn? Please state your address for public record.
I'm Kathy Lind. I live at 813 Mill. I've made this beautiful chart for you that is nowhere near correct, but you'll get the idea when I'm speaking what I mean. It's not to scale. Okay, I'll just read what I have prepared. Then if you have questions, you can ask me too. I'm Kathy Lind, as I said, and this is Cooney Heights United, who's shown up with me tonight, part of it. We're in absolute disagreement with the proposal of another multifamily residence in our community. There are already 7 here, and Lillian has several large complexes to attach to us. Another one on Mill Street alone is unrealistic and will have a significant negative impact to our existing residents. Cooney Heights is a very small subdivision. From Crystal Lake Road to the tracks on Lillian is approximately 0.4 miles. From Lillian to Mill on Crystal Lake Road is approximately 0.4 miles, thereby making the entire subdivision only approximately 0.4 square miles. In that square, there are only 8 streets, only 3 of which exit the subdivision. Of those 8 streets, 5 bear the brunt of the traffic, leaving Route 31 to get to Crystal Lake Road and vice versa. But the entire subdivision experiences problems due to the exponential traffic not affiliated with our residents. Mill Street is a drag strip, and the rest of the area is a road race course. Lillian traffic, as a main thoroughfare, has cars going as fast as they do on 120 on Crystal Lake Road, and that speed is all day long. It is already extremely hard to get in and out of our subdivision. I have sat at Mill Street on Crystal Lake Road and waited for 20 cars before I can turn. We sometimes must go to the lights at Lillian at either end to get home because of the congestion of the 3 highways surrounding our subdivision. Mill Street is 758 feet long, or just over 0.10 miles. There are 5 homes on it, and the bike trail runs with it the entire length. The street is already congested by joggers, bicyclists, dog walkers, and a bus stop. I sometimes wait for 4 or 5 cars just to walk across Mill Street. It's not a huge deal that I have to stand there, and it's not even a minute, but this is a tiny subdivision with an obscene amount of traffic. As I stated before, my husband and I have lived here 26 years, and our grandchildren have never played in our front or side yard because of the out-of-control traffic. People have driven into our yard several times, and those coming down Crestwood have ended up in what will be the front door of the proposed building. Cooney Heights subdivision has approximately 140 single residence homes in its border, allowing for 196 cars. The West Side Crest complex at the end of Mill houses 112 units, allowing for 138 cars. The proposed construction will have 55 units with 100 cars. This is 434 cars in our subdivision, moving around in 0.4 miles square throughout the day. Add to that the other 6 multifamily residence vehicles, delivery trucks, garbage trucks, letter carriers, and never-ending cars to on or off Lillian and Crystal Lake Road. The existing layout of our roadways is the same today as it was in 1893. Nothing has been done to improve our community since. No sidewalks, no curbs, Where did our street sweeper go? We haven't seen them in years. We try to keep our properties attractive, but there is garbage all over, and this is not the way our subdivision was meant to be. It is ludicrous on its face that we should even be considering such an addition. The quality of life for those of us already living here has not been fully considered. Right now, our small area is saturated with people and overwhelmed by vehicles. A building of this magnitude will obviously cause more traffic, more noise, more people, more pets, more trash, more crime, all the good things. The construction of this building will do nothing to help our citizens. The comprehensive plan objective states the policy is to avoid creating through traffic on local streets. How? It's already here. These people are not all going to just be walking around because they're close to town. This is not Chicago. If we wanted to be surrounded by buildings, that's where we would have moved. We are not Crystal Lake, Algonquin, or Lake in the Hills. Mchenry was not supposed to be crammed together like it is. Imagine looking out your front window and seeing the Jewel 50 feet away from your front yard. That's what this will look like to us. Obviously, the sleepy town atmosphere is no longer a consideration. This project is considered to be part of the Main Street sub-area plan. That means the plan is to remove all industrial areas from the west end of Main Street to 120 and promote high-density residential areas, more apartments. What happens when the RTA sells the old Bus Ford property? 200 more units? Who will buy our homes after seeing this overpopulation? And our taxes? Our taxes will go up and our property value will go down. We all understand that the seller wants to sell that property. We all know that something needs to go there, but not an apartment building. We keep putting in more people and we fail to upgrade anything. If we're trying to keep up with the surrounding cities, why don't we invest in things for our kids like they do? Mckenny people go to Crystal Lake and Algonquin for Chuck E. Cheese, Mucky Joe's, ice skating, mega trampolines. We need daycare centers. We have one small swimming pool for the whole city. Again, we understand that the sellers want to sell that property, and we understand who the sellers are. But rather than more people, how about taking care of us already here? 21 years ago, a developer wanted to put 36 units across the street from the one we're discussing. At that time, the wise men of the city council unanimously voted against that proposal, understanding the negative impact it would have on the residents of Cooney Heights. Messrs. Glad and McClatchy, who are currently on this council, were two who voted against it at that time. And again, that was only 36 units on the same size property. Finally, by using the city's population estimate of 2.5 people per resident, the estimates are Cooney Heights has 350 citizens. Westside Crest has 280 of its own, and the proposal will have 138. They will all, Westside Crest and the proposed project will all be on Mill Street. Westside Crest and the proposed complex total more in population than the entire Cooney Heights subdivision, 418 to 350. That's why this is ludicrous on its face. Thank you for listening.
Ron Wagner? Please state your name and address for public record.
My name is Ron Wagner, and I live at 4316 Sioux Lane. I've been a resident there for about 49 years. And I would have to agree with Kathy. I really can't add a whole lot of detail to what she said. She's done her homework for herself and for the rest of us in the local community. I appreciate that, Kathy. As far as getting into the details of the population density, I have yet to see anything about what are the guidelines or the restrictions in terms of population density. I know that about 35 years ago, there was an owner of a piece of property just about across the street from where I live now, who wanted to put up, I think, an 8-unit apartment building. And when the issue came up of density, his representative said, well, you're already overpopulated, so what's the difference if we add a few more? That's an interesting perspective in terms of how to address that issue. That issue of population density in addition to the traffic issue, which everybody seems to be saying, yeah, we need to look at that, but we don't know what to do with it, is of concern. I think to myself, to those people who live around me, which is farther away from Mill Street than where Kathy lives. But nevertheless, it is of concern. The speeding, the ignoring the stop signs, et cetera, on Lillian is a given fact. The police have on occasion tried to enforce that, and I know there have been a few tickets given out in that area. But without a doubt, the majority of the traffic from this unit is going to go through Crestwood onto Lillian because of the lights on both ends. Also wondering what's going to happen, that unit apartment building that they were trying to put up across the street on Mill was voted down. But when this goes in, somebody else is going to say, well, look, you've already got one there, let's put another one in. So we're back to the same logic or illogic of you're already overpopulated, so what's the difference if we add some more? Those are concerns. It's probably nothing original, but I do hope that our representatives will think about that and address what needs to be addressed. Certainly complimenting the developer in terms of the design and the things he's trying to do. But I think we're falling short yet in terms of where our concerns should be. I thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it. Terry Lynn?
Evening, Mayor, Councilman. My wife was just here, yes, we've been here 26 years. It's hard to believe. The first thing I noticed, I'm looking at this gorgeous artist rendition of this apartment. And one of the photos, I can't help but the first thing I notice, and anybody would notice, is a shadow. This building, I'm going to be living in the shadows of for as long as I remain at that residence. I have a lot of questions. The entry and exit have been moved, and it appeared to me that it was moved right in front of my driveway. Where am I going to get my mail at? Because my mailbox is right there. There's no traffic study that's been proposed on this, or that's in the works?
That would be part of the process.
And what about the sewer line? Is it going to be capable of handling all this additional units in here? Has anyone looked into that?
Once again, that's part of the process.
It's still in the process. And then I look at the income. Probably. It could be. It might be. Maybe. We don't know. There's just a lot of vagueness here. It sounds like this thing wants to get rushed in there, and it's hell or high water, it's going there. And for the record, I'm pissed. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to make a public comment? Ma'am, please start with the podium. State your name and address for public record.
I'm Lois Cross, and I live at 4105 West Crestwood Street, 2 doors up from Mill Street. And I've lived there almost 60 years. so I know the subdivision very well. And I'm not against growth, but I am against this project. And there's different reasons. I agree with everything Kathy said, absolutely everything. It's quality of life with me, because things changed when the units were built down on the end of Mill Street. At my house, anyway, they did, because I had people crossing my property, and they crossed diagonally this way and this way and this way. I find people in my yard. I had someone fighting at my back door, 2 or 3 guys, and when I asked them to leave, I was for that. And then there was, at the end of the driveway, another fight, and my son has chased some people off of my property. So I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about the traffic. I sit on my porch, and it's like a raceway. It really is anymore. And there's children. They bring them from the high school, and they're running down the hill. It's Stonely Hill, and up and back and forth. And I'm concerned when there's traffic, like will be if we have these units put there. Kids skateboard down the street all the time. They don't stop. They don't even look on Mill Street. And I'm concerned about that because I love kids. There's a school bus stop right there. And also noise. I live on the hill and it echoes. I can sit on my deck and I can hear the conversations, not just hear them, I can understand them on the bike path, excuse me. And when cars go by, it sounds sometimes like they're pulling into my driveway. Sound is just exaggerated there because of the hill. There's more traffic in the subdivision than those people who live there. I heard the zoning committee say, you know, there's so many units and so many people and so many cars, but they come through there that don't live in our subdivision. And I would like that considered. What about water? You know, people have water in their basements on the hill. I know the neighbor down at the end, right next to me, had to do quite a lot of work because there was like 4 inches of water that came through his garage and into his basement. So these are my concerns. And I want Mchenry to be a family city. And when you have more people, and I was accused on the phone, I said, you know, there are drugs and things because someone was doing them on my property. And they asked me not to talk negative about the Mchenry people. Well, I love the Mchenry people. But when you have more people, you do have more situations. That's just common sense. And I'm concerned about that too. So I appreciate you listening to me. And like I said, I lived there 60 years, and I'm not against change, but I'm against this change. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public like to make public comment? Sir?
Hello, my name is Steve Lundy. I've lived here for Mchenry for 70 years. Where I live now, 40 years, at 4116 Crestwood. And I've seen a lot of change in this town. Yeah, well, I have to if I live here that long. And a couple of problems that I see, the city sanitary is always routing out the sewer in front of the bottom of the hill on Mill and Crestwood. And I don't know, they must have a big problem down there, and they go add a whole bunch of more sewage that they gotta replace the line or something maybe. Another thing I was worried about is they put all these beautiful apartments up there, and they're backing right up to a sewer creek. It's a garbage creek. It's just, everybody washes their vehicles out and runs into the creek, and it goes into Boone Creek from there. And on the other side of the creek, there's a massive fuel dispensary. Now, are you gonna let them build that close to that thing? What happens when the Afghans come up there, these ISIS are they're on their way. And, what's it gonna take? The first thing they're gonna aim is they're gonna aim for a power station or a fuel depot. Now, would you wanna be living there when that happens? There's just a lot of things to think about with this, I think, so I'll leave you be. Okay.
Is there anyone else that'd like to make a public comment? Sorry, Yvonne, I forgot to call on you.
That's okay. My concern is just the overpopulation, hospitals, I mean, the wait is like forever, hours and hours and hours. They have people like that they're bringing from Mchenry to different hospitals, so I'm kind of worried about the population growth. Because I know we've got the apartments, Mill Street, I think there's gonna be some on, Bull Valley, I think, and then, the roller rink. So that's kind of my concern. Also, you know, you guys were talking about, Bert and the bar and stuff and the high school kids, but what about these rough bars that are like right down the road from where the apartment's gonna be? You can't tell me there's not gonna be kids outside and, you know, you got these people racing down that road too and drunk drivers. So that doesn't make sense to me to have that apartment there. That's it.
Is there anyone else that'd like to make a public comment?
My name is Kevin Timius. I live at 4306 Ponca Street. And my main concern is that apartment building to go up, the only way to get out is to go down all the side streets, get to Lillian, to get to stoplights. And traffic's already bad. Our streets are already falling apart. You know, the village comes in, they put in patches for potholes. And that's my main concern. The streets are already falling apart. We're gonna have more traffic going to Lillian. So that's all I have. I'm just worried about traffic.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that'd like to make a public comment? Ma'am?
So I've been up here before, it's been a while now. I live at Walter, 4204 South Street. I was looking at that picture up there, and it's a beautiful apartment, beautiful building, but the street looks so wide. The streets aren't that wide. If you ever visit that area, I don't know if any of you ever been there, I know you live there. The streets aren't that wide on Mill Street. Those poor people live across from it. They're gonna have, they can look at an apartment, look at people's TV. It's narrower. It's not that wide. They make it seem so beautiful and oh, look at all the space. It's not going to be spacious. It's going to be narrow and it's going to be very tight. And then, are these for low-income people or what? I heard it's low income. Now, coming from Chicago, our area has low income, and some people are nice. Most of them were not. That's when we moved. A lot of them cause problems, okay? You're not going to have people that are going to do good things for Mchenry. You're going to have the police there often trying to take care of brawls and drunks and drugs and violence, whatever. We don't need that in our neighborhood, okay? We have enough problems. But you put that kind of a beautiful building, I wish people would be more beautiful just like that building, but you're going to have problems. I don't see this being anything positive. There's nothing of advantage of having something, this big white elephant in the county. You've got single-family homes now. You're going to have this big building right there. I just don't get it. It's about the money again, I'm sure. They're not going to help bring money in. This is going to cost Mchenry more because it's just the people coming in. Some need help. I understand that. If it were like a nursing home or a facility for older people, I'd be more apt to agree with it. But for the type of people, you have the train station right there, the kind of people coming from suburbs, from Chicago, you don't know what's going to happen there. I'm concerned with the type of people coming out. Plus, you already have a building next to the train station that, to me, looks like a flop house. I don't know if, you put more people out here in this area that are like that, you're going to have a lot of crime. Is that what you guys really want, is more crime in Mchenry? And it's not fair for the neighbors, our area, to be stuck with this big building. You're already building this big building behind the Colts facility. Have you seen what's been going on there? I mean, you're stripping the land to build multi-facility apartments of what? Low income also, from what I heard. What are they then?
Go ahead.
No, you're shaking your head.
No, it's just not true, that's all.
Then what are they? Tell me, because this is what I heard.
Market rate. Market rate apartments.
What kind of apartment?
Market rate.
What does that mean, market rate?
Rent is driven by the market demand.
Not low income. Go ahead.
I think you're overdoing it with this apartment stuff. Build something decent for once, okay? Build something where people stay in Mchenry and generate money for you. We have to go other places to generate money for you, for the other towns. We don't generate it for you guys because you're just building apartments. It's bringing out people that are not the nicest people all the time, okay? I mean, we have enough problems as it is. My concern is the type of people moving in. My concern is the fact that it's so big in you've already heard the traffic, so I know you don't want to hear about the traffic. But yeah, we're surrounded by buildings. Our little residential area is going to vanish. I mean, like they say, our streets are horrible condition. We have no sidewalks. We don't have any proper lighting. Trick-or-treaters, you can't really get in because they're afraid to walk out. It's dark. There's nothing, there's no light, there's no sidewalks. Yet you want to bring more people in? I mean, I just can't fathom the way you're thinking. I mean, if you could clarify, and then, okay, apartments cost so much. I always, from what I've heard, okay, let's say apartment costs $1,000. If they're low income, what do they pay? Maybe $100? I mean, I wish I could get that kind of a break. I mean, it's just not, it's not feasible. I just don't think it's feasible. You might think it is because it's on paper and makes, oh, look at all this money we're going to make or whatever tax incentive, federal government. I don't know. All I know is, to me, this is ludicrous. I just, like I said before, with the bar, which is just unbelievable, that, especially down the road from a high school. Oh my gosh. But now, this apartment building too, it just, I have a feeling you guys already made up your mind you're going to do it. But for us, yeah, we have to vent because we're very unsatisfied with your decisions, period.
Thank you. Sir? I would ask that if you just not repeat.
No. I'm sorry, I totally forgot to mention this last time.
Sure.
Tavern, 4306 Ponca Street. The other major concern I have is what impact is going to be on a school district. And that's all I have to ask.
Sure.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions by the public? I see none. All right, at this time, I'm going to go ahead and ask for a motion and a second for 7D as presented to approve. Alderman Strack?
I'll make the motion as presented.
Thank you. Second? Alderman Harding?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and open up for council discussion before we do roll call. Alderman Sanji, go ahead.
There's definitely some comments that hit home, and I just want to make sure I understand it, and hopefully the audience participation can understand or possibly didn't comprehend. Chief, I have a question for you. Over your years, has there been any major traffic concerns on Crestwood?
No.
What's the, is there any numbers in regards to, I don't know if you have them, that compare criminal calls from a residential area as compared to a multi-residential area like an apartment or a condominium complex, something like this? I mean, is there any difference there, or do you see fluctuations?
We don't generally see fluctuation, but we see the fluctuation based on the density. So it's just like when we discussed the last apartment complex that was going up behind Aldi. Typically, it's about population. So, you know, crimes of opportunity, which is the majority of what we see in Mchenry, property crimes, they're based on, those numbers are fairly relevant to the population. So in an apartment complex, there's more people that live there than a single residential neighborhood, so you do see a variation there, but they're directly correlated most of the time. I would say that I took a look at Crestwood, specifically Crestwood between Lillian and Mill Street. For the last 5 years, we've had 3 vehicle accidents on the street over a 5-year period. 2 of them were involving residents that actually lived in the subdivision. One of those was a DUI, and one was involving somebody that was they took a wide turn off of, that was at Mill and Lillian and sideswiped the car. Those are the only actual accidents. And we do directed patrols, and we track those from residents when they request them. And I don't have any requests for Crestwood. It's the only street that I did look up though in the subdivision, so over the last 2 years.
And one of the traffic concerns, there was a comment that was made during the public discussion about speeders on Mill Street. I mean, it's a short street, and
I don't have any data that I could provide the council at this point, because, you know, that takes a little time to pull the data, but that would be a difficult street to actually run radar on just because of the short distance that it actually is.
And I don't know, just an open question. I mean, was there more of a negative or a positive towards the neighborhood with the bike path that is running through the neighborhood now, alongside the railroad tracks that go west to the parks? I mean, I've been on it twice myself, and I just don't. I mean, you know, is any? I don't know if this is a question for you, Chief, but any concerns there? Has there been any traffic violations at the flashing light?
We get a couple a year. So in 2021, we had one vehicle accident on Mill at Crystal Lake Road involving a bicycle. In 2020, we had 0. In 2019, we had 0. In 2018, we had 1. And in 2017, we had 1 vehicle versus pedestrian. None of them were serious, but they all involved the flashing light in the 4 lanes. One car stops, the other doesn't. Typically, it's not. They're not tied to the traffic coming. Those particular accidents are not tied to the traffic coming off of Mill.
Okay. So, I have no other questions right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Glenn?
Yeah. Did we not have a death on Crystal Lake Road near Lillian there? God, what, 10, 12 years ago?
We did.
Late at night, a skateboarder?
Yep, and it was not by Lillian or Mill. It was right in the middle, close to the woods. It was a skateboarder skateboarding in the middle of the street.
As far as the bike path affecting this subdivision, possibly as far as once they get out onto the road, but the Prairie Trail doesn't go through that subdivision. If it does, it would be just right there at Lillian. And I can tell you that is a dangerous area as well, because there was one time, just about 3 weeks ago, that I was heading west, and I was doing about 23, 25 miles an hour like I should be. And it was a good thing I did. And I slowed down as I hit the sun, because the sun was directly in my face. And as I was crossing the tracks, there was a kid with a bike coming out of that trail, and just didn't even bother to look or anything else. He was just gonna go straight across, and luckily I could stop very easily, but, that's just me. I mean, everybody gets up on my tail end because of the way I drive, and unfortunately, everybody should be driving that way, but they're not. Traffic seems to be the biggest concern on this project. If you take a look at the project, really, we all want to see a project over there for the downtown area. The problem winds up is the traffic doesn't affect the downtown area. Now, if that property somehow could be connected to Main Street and not going out to Mill, I think the residents would have less concerns. I think it would definitely possibly be where we could control traffic a lot better. But I don't know, looking at the map, I just don't see how that could happen at this point in time, but there are other properties out there. And that would be the solution. Unfortunately, there's nothing happening on those other properties right now. So I don't know, maybe this property isn't ready to be developed properly until such a time as we can find access to Main Street.
Any questions or comments by council? Go ahead.
So first of all, I want to thank my neighbors for being here. Many of you reached out to me when this first was published before your town hall meeting. Terry, Steve, Kathy, thank you for reaching out to me. I appreciate that, representing you and being your neighbor. You all know where to find me, so thank you. Having said that, I'm disappointed that you didn't reach out to me most recently with your common concerns. But I sat through all the meetings with you, I've listened, and what I've heard is exactly what Alderman Glad just said. You're concerned about traffic. None of you raised a big concern about the project, the building, the landscaping, the way it looks, other than Terry and the shadows, and I appreciate that. But it sounds like traffic is the big concern. There are traffic measures that can be put in place to solve this. That's yet to be determined by the process. And I need you to understand that the process is going to go on and they are going to look at all of those issues. So please be open to the process. This is not a guarantee that this is going to be constructed. You all have to realize that. This is a developer asking us to consider this development. We have heard your concerns, and we will address them. That's our job. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Alderman
Yeah,
Where are we in the process exactly after this tonight? If we were to go forward, what happens after?
Obviously, engineering, architectural review, but the biggest thing that needs to happen is that North Point needs to secure the funding, which they won't know until May. They have to have the approval in place in order to do the final application to the state. So this is the approval. I mean, tonight. You're approving the apartments tonight, or disapproving, one of the two.
So we're being asked to approve apartments without all the information.
No, you have the information.
We don't have the traffic study, and all that. So technically, we don't know. I mean, if it wasn't the funding, then we probably wouldn't be looking at this until those other things were done.
Probably so, but this is no different than Continental, where everybody wanted the engineering completed before it was approved. Well, none of us sitting in this room except for this guy is an engineer. So, I mean, for us to look at engineering, it's way more specific and way more involved than what the professionals that review those will review those later on in the process. We get the plans done, we get the architectural renderings done, all that stuff, comes before you tonight.
Right, so, but we don't have all the information beforehand. As far as, you know, these traffic studies and everything else, I mean, I don't know what the traffic studies would show. And has anybody even thought about the fact that reverse this thing and figure out some way that where traffic can go out to Main Street and how that could work?
Jake, we've had those discussions.
I can speak to that a little bit. That'd be a great
Jake,
question.
if you don't mind, you start with some flame.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, that's a Alderman, thank you for that question. We have been working really hard with, the staff to kind of change up the direction, the ingress and egress of the site. And that was one of the major things that we added early on was that access point off of Main Street. That was one of the recommendations that we got, to help better control the traffic flow. So we do have an access point off of Main Street.
Yeah, the only problem is when you open it up to Main Street at that location, it is awful close to the intersection, which makes that very difficult.
Yep.
But it also then creates a flow through the way you have it designed right through your subdivision. In other words, they come in off of Main and they go straight out the mill.
I mean, the idea would be that they're using the main.
People learn shortcuts, and once they learn them, they pass it on to others. Oh, yeah, you know, I found that if you do this and that and whatever, and that winds up to be a problem. So I'm not always keen on the fact that you have different ingress and egress on different sides of the development, because that will create people cutting through. It's always happened, no matter where. Since I ever started driving, I've seen it. But I honestly believe that if there was a better way to develop this, maybe it'll be down the road, it would be, as far as getting that traffic out to Main Street, but then we've got to figure out what to do with it if it goes out to Main. Because there are other properties that sooner or later will get developed on Main Street. And I think all that could work together in unison, but at this point, I've got a lot of reservations about the traffic. So, thank you.
Any other questions, comments by council? Alderman Sandy?
I'm sorry, but real quickly, Ross, was there, and I don't know, and maybe this is to Ross and to Jake, was there a rendition or was there any discussion about entryway right there, or that's too close to that intersection, right? If the entryway was on Crystal Lake Blacktop?
We did not discuss.
Is that too close to that?
Yeah, we didn't discuss any entry on Crystal Lake Road.
Right, but you would probably need county approval to do that.
No, it's a city road.
And just to, put a reference, and I understand Alderman Black's question. The bike path I was thinking about was when the path goes on Mill Street and then crosses Crystal Lake Blacktop. I guess you brought up an incident, and I get it, where you can get the sun on Lillian. Mm-hmm. I was more asking about that area because it goes past a couple of constituents that are out there today that drive right by their property and goes to goes across Crystal Lake Road to the park, and then crosses 120.
Right. Does go into the subdivision, just goes next to
it. That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Miller?
So, again, I'm back to the traffic process, and Jake, introduced to you, because this has been my consistent message to you. I would like to see us come up with a plan to force traffic on Mill Street out to Crystal Lake Road and keep it out of my neighborhood. And again, I can tell you that I live on the corner of South and Logan, and I know there are cars there that don't live in the neighborhood. I had this conversation with Chief earlier today that people that live in the neighborhood go 20 miles an hour or less because we're respectful of the kids, and the dogs, and the pedestrians. and people who don't live in the neighborhood go 40 miles an hour because they want to get to Lillian. And you can sit on the sidewalk or you can sit on your porch and you can know who's there. So I would love to see a way to create some barrier, some median, some sticks, something in the middle of Mill Street to force traffic to go to Crystal Lake Road. Whether that's from the existing apartments or any future growth or development on this space. And I don't know how to do that. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a road person. I know that there's limitations because this isn't a 60-foot roadway. But I know when I'm forced to pay attention and not hit an orange thing, I go where I'm supposed to go. And I wouldn't be going up Crestwood. So I just want to put that out there, that if there's a way to deflect traffic or force traffic, I think that would make a lot of people happier than what we're seeing right now. Because being a resident in that community, whatever comes down Mill Street, 50% of them are going to come up our neighborhood. And I'm concerned, as are my constituents, about that. For 55 apartments, we're 12 apartments. So, Terry, I don't know how you feel about orange sticks in the middle of Mill Street there to keep everybody going up Crystal Lake Road. But I think if we could devise something to get people forced to go to Crystal Lake Road, I think we'd be a lot happier. Ross, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just looking at the entrance to the west, I guess. And you could do a right out there only, but your entrance that's further into the subdivision, you'd still be able to get to Crestwood.
Right. We were just talking about that. What if you block that off?
I can speak to this. Putting up sticks, putting a no left turn, that's gonna alleviate some of your problem, but people are still gonna violate it. The police are not gonna be there every time to enforce it. This is true. The idea of maybe their own exit out on the Crystal Lake Road rather than on the mill, somewhere where maybe, I'm just speaking for, a driveway, if this is not the development, you know, where the townhome was being built, the proposed townhome. So they have their own entrance off of Crystal Lake Road and they don't go into Mill Street whatsoever, and then they have an exit up on the main, the redevelopment.
That's utilizing the existing building, the townhome.
Yeah, this one is too?
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe this is too simple, and it's to you, Jake. And what if the only access was on the Mill Street, the one that's there right now, and all the other ones were closed?
The one closest to,
And all the traffic is slow.
the one closest to West Crystal Lake Road.
Right.
It's probably not enough access points, to make the fire department happy, and for sure.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to get the equipment in and out of there.
But if it wasn't for them, could you live with it?
I think,
Not discounting the fire department.
no, sure, I think that's a tough, thing to incorporate into the project, only having that entrance point at the beginning. We played with a bunch of different ideas, and I think you're gonna cut off a lot of circulation on the site that way. I mean, we played with as many ideas as you could imagine, trying to find different alternatives. Because we hear the traffic concerns loud and clear.
So I think, if this is passed, I say that, since Sue Miller is your alderwoman, that she's part of that process with staff and, your team.
Yep.
Just so that way we can communicate that to the residents that have that concern, so.
Yeah, absolutely, and I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I want to make this very clear. Throughout this entire process, we've worked really hard to incorporate all this different feedback, and that is something that we 100% want to continue. It's important to us that we don't just drop down a building and, make it what we want. It's important that we listen to feedback of the residents here as well. Appreciate that.
Almost right.
So the chief makes a good point, though. A left turn won't eliminate 100% of the issue, but it will certainly deter. If the risk of the deterrent is there, and we have somebody there occasionally watching that exit, probably will deter enough to make it a considerable amount of less traffic into the neighborhood. What do we have to do to make that happen for the no left on the Crestwood?
that's fairly simple. That's passed by an individual ordinance.
So, I mean, again, I think everyone's concern is traffic. You're not gonna eliminate 100% of it, but if you can knock that number down by 30%, that's a pretty good number. And Chief, is that realistic, a 30% reduction?
I'll be honest with you, I don't know. There's only one other time when we've tried to restrict left turn traffic, and that's onto Allen off of John Street during school hours.
Well, that's high schoolers, so.
Yeah, well, in the school.
And it's gonna be here as well.
So, without actually going out there and tracking it, I wouldn't be comfortable giving a percentage, but it would make an improvement.
And certainly make it much more enforceable. Thank you.
Here's the thing about making that left turn though. If you make it a no left turn, which I think is a great idea. I was thinking of it even before the chief mentioned it, you know, and I'm glad he brought it up. The thing is you got all the Mill Street apartments that are used to making that left there. So we'd almost need some enforcement at first when it first did.
Sure.
To get, because, you know, people for years have been using Crestwood, and all of a sudden now they can't make a left down there. So, but it is a viable option, I agree, you know. But then the westerly entrance, that would be what, that have it designed where it'd have to be right turn only? Right out. And designed that way, so just like the bus, on the old freeway, it has to go to the right.
And a sign, right turn.
You're referring to the entrance point closest to West Crystal Lake Road?
Correct. Yeah.
Off of our property?
Right.
I think that makes sense.
It would alleviate it. I mean, again, like the chief said, it won't be 100%, but it would alleviate quite a bit of the. But I still like the idea of waiting until we could enter into Main Street.
I will say to that point, Alderman, the property is for sale now, and they're working really hard to dispose of it, so.
Well, I thought you would buy it and just sit on it for the next 6 or 7 years until it's viable.
I wish we could do that.
All right.
I just have one more comment. Jake, I want to thank you for being flexible and listening to our comments and working through some of the solutions. Again, we worked together several times during this process, and you've made modifications that I can see. So I want you to continue to make modifications, because those residents will hold you accountable, particularly my neighbors across the street from this development. You know, it's not perfect. We know that. But I think if you continue to work with the city and resolve some of their issues, we can work together.
Absolutely, and we've already had, before this meeting, some of those preliminary conversations.
So there's another idea here where we could do just an emergency access on the east side for the fire department. That would force everybody out to the right out only. We have those in town on some of our bigger developments as well. You would improve the approach, but there would be some sort of barrier with a Knox box key or something that, I mean, those are things, options that we can work with them.
I think one of the resolutions with the no left on the Crestwood eliminates two problems, though. It eliminates this one to a little bit, and it will probably lighten some of the previous Mill Street traffic from the other development as well. Again, I think both are viable solutions. If it's all right, I'd like to amend my motion to add the condition of adding the no left turn onto Crestwood from Mill and making that exit on the west side of the property right out only, out of that development.
All right. Alderman Harding, you agree with that?
I agree.
Chief, go ahead.
To Ross's point about making the east access only for emergency traffic, from my perspective, that would be the way to resolve what your issues are in conjunction with the right out only on the western side.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, can we take it, I think we have to adjust that motion just a little bit. We know what the intent is as far as the left turn, the no left turn, but that's something the city has to do. It's not something that we can put the onus on the developer because he has no control on it.
Right, we have to create ordinance.
Yeah, so in other words, put it in there.
Understood.
Right turn only on the other one, but you can't put it on the other one as far as the no left turn. That's something that we as the city have to do.
Would you be open to an emergency?
I think that's something we'd have to look closer at. I think the right turn only of the first entrance closest to West Crystal Lake is probably the best idea.
Right, that would remain, but your back entrance would be emergency only.
Yeah, I think that's something we'd have to look a bit closer at. We do have to come back for, the final approval, so.
Right. So, yeah, I'm sorry, that reminds me. They do have to come back for a final approval. This is preliminary approval so that they can, the second project that we're going into, the next discussion is different. So my apologies for that. This is going to be preliminary approval so that they can, apply for their funding. You will have another chance, and we can work together between now and then on this traffic thing with Alderwoman Miller. You will have one more chance on voting this.
Even so, what you want to tag onto that motion and the second, if you want to do that, would be that it's the same condition secured by an ordinance adopted by the city council to implement that. Right-hand turn?
Yeah, right-hand, no left turn, no left turn.
So you want to add that to the motion?
The right-hand turn would have to be entered into with agreement with the property owner. Because it's private property, the only way we can enforce a right turn only sign is if we have an agreement that says we can enforce that private property right turn. The left turn onto Crestwood when you're westbound on Mill coming from the old apartments, that would be adopted by ordinance.
I just got more. Go ahead with that
I
one.
just want to be clear on what we would be able to enforce and not.
The motion covers it because it's a condition on him to implement the left-hand turn through the ordinance and the right turn emergency. You're gonna have to work through that. It's a condition as well. Are you good with that?
Yep.
So the two tag-alongs, the right-hand turn with the condition on the development and the left-hand turn secured by the ordinance adopted by the city council.
Our approval would be contingent on that left turn being passed, that ordinance being passed.
Yeah, at least at the preliminary stage here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask my residents first, how do you all feel about the no left turn on Crestwood coming on Mill from all of the apartments? Are you in favor of that?
Goes to the bottom of the hill, off there, and turn around and make a right turn.
And it makes it more difficult for us to get home.
Make a stoplight on Mill Street. At the apartment complex, build a stoplight.
Okay. Hearing it will work. All right, you guys, I need more input,
All right.
but it's not gonna happen tonight. You know where to find me. Thank
So
you.
we're striking that, or?
Well, yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, we might wanna strike that and re-amend.
So you don't want.
At this time, no. So go ahead and amend it just as a motion as.
So the
So the
motion
left
will
hand is
be,
not happening, right?
Right.
Just trying to know.
Yeah, he's gonna make the motion right now. What do you think?
Tricia, we're going back to my original motion.
Okay.
So remove the two conditions. So the approval, the motion will be as presented.
Correct.
With the right turn only.
With a,
The right turn only out of the.
Oh, yes, we can add that.
so the one condition will be right turn only from the west exit of the development.
With an enforcement agreement by the city.
With an enforcement agreement between
The city of Mchenry.
the city of Mchenry and the developer.
Alderman Hardy, you agree?
Yes.
Okay.
Tricia, is that, you have that?
Got it. So right turn only from the west exit, with the enforcement agreement of the city of Mchenry and the developer.
Correct. And the developer.
Developer.
Yes.
Yep. All right?
As amended the third time, I think we have it now.
Okay, awesome. So just to be clear, that emergency access is not in there, right? Okay.
It's not in there, not yet.
Yep.
Sorry, I apologize.
Sorry. All right, you may have a seat.
Thank you.
Tricia, you want to go ahead and call the roll?
Okay, Alderman Strack,
Yes.
Alderman Harding,
Yes.
Alderman Santi,
Yes.
Alderman Glad,
No.
Alderman Devine,
No.
Alderwoman Miller.
Yes.
That has passed. Before you all get up, I'd like to ask, I know a lot of these comments were made tonight on where the city is going, talking about just money. It's kind of, it is frustrating, to be honest, as someone that gives a lot of work that's on this council and myself and staff. We ask that you get involved. If there's things that you need done or you want to get involved in, please come to us. It's not about the money. It's not about just, people even mention these people. These people are, they need places to live too. They're single mothers with 2 kids. I mean, we've talked to these types of people that you guys had alluded to. So I ask that you get involved in the community a little bit more if you would like to make some changes. So thank you very much.
Do you think renters care about the community? They're here today and they're gone tomorrow.
Thank you.
School districts, who's paying for that?
Next item on the agenda is 7E. This is a motion to approve an ordinance granting a use variation and zoning variations for a 50-unit multifamily apartment building at 914 North Front Street. Dr. Palarecki, when we shut this door, you can go ahead and present this item.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the second apartment complex that, for tonight's meeting, you guys have also seen that as a council in a conceptual phase. This is the roller rink property. This is a 3-story, 50-unit multifamily apartment at 914 Front. The applicant is looking for the same situation as the last applicant, where they're applying for funding, and they need to get approval prior to that. This is for an approval, unlike the last one, which was preliminary. My mistake on that. This is for final approval. We're looking for a use variation to allow multifamily apartment building within the C5 Highway Commercial District. The zoning variation to allow a corner side yard setback of 19 feet in lieu of the required 30. The zoning variation to allow 100 parking spaces in lieu of the required 124. It was presented for planning and zoning. There was a 5-2 vote in favor of recommending from City Council. So Tyler is here from Commonwealth for any questions.
Sir? Council, any questions for the developer? You want to go ahead and do a presentation?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, go ahead. You can go ahead.
Thank you guys for having me. My name is Tyler Sharon with Commonwealth Development. It's nice to be here in person. So we'll dive right into this.
You have the clicker and start.
The other guy, yeah.
Okay.
He did that on purpose.
Yeah. Structured play, right? The down arrow moves on.
Okay. So looking at the original proposal that we came here with, it was 50 units, 3-story building with 100 surface parking stalls. And just based on the feedback that we received from you guys was that there was not enough green space. The development felt clustered. There was a sea of asphalt per se, and it simply needed to be changed. Looking at the elevation, some comments there were that the facade was rather flat, limited brick, and it simply just didn't fit for an apartment style within Mchenry. Looking at what we're proposing now for you guys is, again, 50 units, still a 3-story building, with 100 parking stalls, but now 40 of them will be under the building. We did this to make the development seem less cluttered, increase the green space, and with this, we've been able to add a playground and a pergola, along with keeping that front community patio there. So as you can see, increased green space significantly. In addition, we added a path to the park behind. I know that was something that I emphasized last time in front of you guys, as we think that's a great asset. So we wanted to make sure that that path is there, and that is something that P&Z made conditional approval on, so we implemented that. And then looking at the elevation itself, kind of transitioned into a more traditional apartment-style building with a pitched roof and some various dimensions. We kept the balconies there and the patios, as we think that's a great asset. And we also increased the brick there. Kind of hard to see, it's not zoomed in enough, but on every column there, it goes essentially all the way up to the roof. So, looking at the development itself, it's a significant increase to what was originally presented, and we feel that we captured everything that you guys kind of were concerned about, and then some. So as I said, the closing remarks here is added green space, the park access, playground pergola, underground parking, increased amount of brick in the traditional build style. And one thing too that I did want to go back to here was there was a conversation about potentially rotating the building, to kind of have it on the back and a butt against the park. And one thing that, we kind of thought about is having the playground there. The playground there is going to be for the younger kids, and it's nice to have the building there as kind of a barrier instead of having the playground right against the road there. And then the anticipation will be, the older kids can go play in the park in the back if they choose to. So that was the one thing that we did not tailor. Other than that, essentially everything has kind of been captured, or at least we tried our best to. And that is what I have for you guys.
Thank you. I'll open up for council comments, questions, concerns. Alderman Santi, go ahead.
Tyler, correct?
Yep.
Tyler, thank you. I appreciate your time. We've had at least one or two conversations prior. A couple things you did. The pitched roof, was something I was looking at before, and appreciate that look. And I do like that, even though I was looking towards, or looking with some interest of maybe turning the building, I see your point in regards to a little bit more of like a border and a security for the internal area that you now have proposed there. So I appreciate those two components. If I may ask Director Hobson in regards to the park entrance, that's comfortable with us with going into that park entryway. We're good with that. Yeah, I'm good with that on the issues. Okay. How would just be like open into the park and stay open? I mean, would it be gated? How would it work?
One thing I will say, just Ross, I know you kind of presented that this was for final approval. It still is subject to a development agreement where we could have, this parameters for the path and things like that. It's just set in stone per se. I mean, there's still is that.
Honestly, I can't make a recommendation there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'd be willing to conform with whatever you'd like.
In regards to what's the best secure and safe way. One more question. It's 50 units exactly?
Correct. Yep.
And 26 of those are going to be prior, as you said before, 26 3 bedrooms?
25 will be for 3 bedrooms. It's essentially, there's the state agency, as Jake kind of mentioned a little bit, they kind of release parameters on what they want to see. And as you see, if you compare development side by side, I mean, they're going to have the same thing of 20% of the units at 30% AMI, X amount of 3 bedrooms, and it's just kind of what we have to conform to.
Sure. And I know some concerns with possibly this. Hopefully, I'm not going to jump in a couple other items or thoughts that other council members have, but in regards to this, does sit on a highway. It is bordered by all commercial, and I know there's definitely some concerns there. They do, there is a lot of apartments and just, a few hundred feet just to the south on 31, separated a little bit, definitely separated a little bit more from the highways, behind small retail, and then also a insurance company and a library. So there's a little bit of protection there. So I know that's a couple of concerns. And if, I just want to go to the other side here. If this is something that doesn't pass tonight, we have this tremendous eyesore sitting there right on our highway. Do we have the, are we ready to look at one way or another of cleaning up the property?
Are you directing that to
Yeah,
me?
I guess it's staff, I guess.
We are in the process of, regardless of what happens with this project, we are in the process of.
No offense, Tyler, I'm just want to.
Hey, no,
both
we've
sides of the fence here.
We've had these conversations, Tyler and I, so we're in the process of getting it cleaned up.
Okay. All right, thank you. No further questions right now, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments by the council?
What is the property directly north of this? Is there like a right of way over there?
There's a house. Oh, no, there's
the old Alexander Lumber.
It's actually a right of way.
There is a right of way.
Yeah, it's, James Street.
Correct.
It's James Street, so.
It's just an undeveloped right of way.
We have one of our major transmitter sewers that passes that right away, so we're gonna make sure we have an access to, continue maintaining there.
Gotcha.
So the idea, Alderman Glad, would be to probably vacate it and get a 30-foot wide easement over the top of our, because there's really no reason to push James Street through to 31.
So that development, is the right of way part of that development now?
I don't think you're on it now, are you? Can you go back?
You can, or someone was controlling it.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Yeah, just the drive.
Yeah, so that is one thing, my apologies. So the original proposal we did have going through, and kind of based on some of the feedback there, is you guys did not want that all the way through, as you just mentioned, Ross. So now we just have it stopping at the development. In anticipation, there was going to be vacation. From my understanding is when you vacate a road, the two adjacent properties they get their respective halves. So right now we're only showing taking half of that road. And I guess the benefit for you guys of a vacation would be that it's our road to control, especially, with winter conditions and everything like that, rather than having to have a city plow truck take care of it.
Okay.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments by council?
That's just a comment, and that's the fact that I still feel that, this development doesn't belong there, that, right in the middle of the commercial, I just don't have, I've got a preference to see commercial stay there.
Any others? You may have a seat. I'm going to go ahead and open up. Alderman Devine?
I agree with Alderman Glad on this commercial.
Okay. I'm going to open up for public input. Is there anyone from the public that would like to make public comment regarding this development? See none? Moving back to council, I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve 7E as presented.
Looking to a development agreement, is that what I heard?
Yes.
There's a condition in the ordinance.
Question?
Yep. Go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry, Director Palaraki, but this is a little bit different than, because this would be the final, and then they would go to their application for funding, and do that process sometime in January, February, where they have to get approved by May, and in May, we would know whether they're going to go through with it if they get their funding, correct?
It would be an approval subject to the development agreement.
And the development agreement would happen
when they find out if they,
so then they have to come back to us?
Correct. The development agreement will come back, so the nuts and bolts of the development, not necessarily the site plan stuff. So this is gonna give them the opportunity to move forward with engineering, preliminary engineering, things of that nature, the site plan. The agreement, which would be, Joe, what, you anticipate anything in the agreement would probably be some verbiage about the vacation and,
well, you'd look at, assuming that you still want to vacate the road, you'd look at the vacation of the roads, you look at any of the other variations that you've granted, make certain those go hand in hand with the rest of your ordinance.
And real quickly for Tyler or Joe, when you've gone through this process and these applications with prior developments, what's your batting average?
It really depends on what the other applications are, and neither of these groups have any control of that. I can tell you in Crystal Lake about 3 or 4 years ago, I was working on a project, and it was stalled for a year because that year Chicago Housing Authority took all of them for the state. And we had nothing to say about it. There was no other project approved in the state of Illinois.
I don't know how to word this question, but so how many development
prior to this,
are available?
in 3 of them.
There's 3 available.
No. I don't know how many are available. I've been personally involved in 3 of them besides this. So that's my background in terms of what I've seen. And the city, and all of them are in Crystal Lake. All of them are on Congress Parkway, practically.
Okay, and I'm sorry.
Well, what I'm saying, just to speak to Commonwealth's track record, if that's what you're getting at, I kind of touched on this in our preliminary presentation, but we've been in operation for 20 years now. We were just ranked the 12th largest affordable housing developer in the country, largest in our home state of Wisconsin. So we have a very impressive track record simply because we do the due diligence. We know Mchenry is a great area to be in, and that's why we're here. And I think that also shows with Jake being here is just how well this area truly is.
Okay, so last year or the last 2 years, how many applications have you placed and how many got approved?
Me personally or company-wide?
The company.
Oh, company-wide, I'd say typically around 80% hit home.
Okay, and are we talking about different states?
Absolutely.
So, state of Illinois?
We have not done one in the state of Illinois yet.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. All right. So, we got a motion. Do we have a motion? No, we don't. I'm looking for a motion, I forgot, Alderman Santi.
I apologize.
Had a question. No, it's all right, no, it's all good. 7E, looking for a motion to approve 7E as presented.
Subject to a developer. Yeah. Subject to a developer.
Wait,
Subject to a developer agreement.
guys, you're killing me. Okay, subject,
To a development agreement.
thank you.
Mm-hmm. I am looking for a motion. Alderman Santi?
I will make the motion.
Thank you. Second, Alderman Strack.
I'll second.
Thank you. Once again, last opportunity for discussion. Alderman Glenn?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that this developer, just like the last one, is basically, they're in competition for the same grants, correct? So, I could kind of assume that the strings are the same as, at the other development.
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santi,
Yes.
Alderman Strack,
Yes.
Alderman Devine,
No.
Alderwoman Miller,
No.
Alderman Harding,
Yes.
Alderman Glad.
No.
That development has failed. No, right?
3-3, isn't it?
4-3, wasn't it? Wasn't it 4-3?
There's only 6 here.
Oh, shoot, there's only 6 here.
3-3.
So it's up to the mayor.
3-3, right?
Yeah, 3-3. Wait,
Oh, there has to be,
what do you got?
I have Alderman Santi, the motion, second by Alderman Strack. I have a no from Alderman Glad, a no from Alderman Devine, no from Alderwoman Miller. Alderman Harding votes yes. And Alderman McClatchy is absent.
Yeah.
3-3.
Yes.
Mayor, go ahead.
so I vote no on this development.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is discussion items. We have none. Executive session to discuss a purchase or lease of real property for use of public body, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel to be acquired, 5 ILCS 122C5, and the litigation when the public body finds an action is probable or imminent, 5 ILCS 122C11. So at this time, I would ask that if you are in the room, if you could please step out for executive session. We will not be taking any action after this, and we'll go to, staff reports, city council comments, just so you're aware.
Can I ask if any of the aldermen want me to stick around so that we can talk after? I'll often do that. Do you have any questions, additional?
Does anyone have any questions for me after the meeting? No?
Okay. If not, we'll be in touch otherwise. Awesome. Yep.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mayor's money. I know it's.
Yeah, he'll go there.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you, Jim. Hey, Monty, you'll go ahead and, yeah. Oh, motion.
Motion to,
Hang on.
Enter
executive session.
Oh, hold on.
Okay.
Motion by Alderman Santi, second. Alderman Strack.
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santi,
Yes.
Alderman Strack.
Yes.
Alderman Devine.
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller.
Yes.
Alderman Harding.
Yes.
Alderman Glad.
Yes.
Recording in progress.
We know that, okay.
Yep, I escorted the last one.
Hey, you put the weather up, 39 degrees. Frost is in the air.
I'm good here now.
Roll call. Are you ready?
I'm good.
Oh. Roll call.
Alderman Santi,
Present.
Alderman Glad,
Here.
Alderman Clash, he is absent. Alderman Harding,
Here.
Alderman Strack,
Here.
Alderman Devine,
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller.
Here.
All right, for item 10A, we're not going to act on that item tonight. Staff reports, is there any additional staff reports this evening? None? Okay. Mayor's report, I have none. City council comments. Alderman Glenn?
Yeah. My apology goes to Alderman Strack if he took himself that he considered himself a newbie a few meetings ago, and I did use that. But I got interrupted by the mayor, and the point I was trying to make is the fact that you call for a vote, but there has to be a second, and then the city council has to vote on whether we're going to take a vote or not. And that is the normal procedure that we do with Robert's rules.
I believe Robert's rules.
That's what I was bringing up.
I believe Robert's rules, Alderman Glab says that if a question is called, all conversation stops and it's immediate vote as long as the motion is on the floor with the second, and that is exactly what I have called tonight. I'd be happy to bring you the Roberts book next time we meet.
I've got the
So, I mean, I appreciate the apology.
But anyway, that was the whole thing. Unfortunately, it got cut off. It made it sound like it was a slap to you.
It's all good. Thankfully, I've read the book a couple of times, and I wouldn't have done it had I not known what the motion was. So
We'll check into it. Thanks.
All right. Any other city council comments? See none? Looking for a motion and a second to adjourn. Alderman Strack?
I'll make that motion.
Seconded by Alderwoman Miller.
Yeah.
Please call the roll.
Alderman Strack,
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller. Yes. Alderman Devine,
Yes.
Alderman Harding,
Yes.
Alderman Glad,
Yes.
Alderman Santi.
Thank you, council. Thank you, staff.
Please turn your monitors off. Thank you.